Thank you everyone for joining the alumni panel this afternoon. Before I introduce our moderator today, I do want to let you know that throughout the panel, you can submit your questions in the Q&A button on the bottom control panel of your screen, and there will be a time for Q&A at the end. So I'll introduce our moderator. Dr. Iris Gilday is an associate professor at the University of St. Michael's College and teaches in the Book and Media Studies program. Her research is at the intersections of trauma theory and media studies and theories of aesthetics. In addition to guiding her fourth-year seminar students in creating artwork, she frequently leads poetry and expressive arts community workshops. Professor Gilday earned her PhD from the University of Toronto in 2009. And in addition to her academic work, she's a poet and visual artist. So welcome, Professor Gilday.
Thanks so much, Maxine. It's so lovely to be here. And I just want to thank all of our attendees and our alumni for being here as well. And I especially would like to thank our panelists on behalf of St. Mike's and the BMS program. I'm so thrilled to be talking with you today. And I also know that we have some BMS students in the audience as well, and they are especially eager to hear your connection between the St. Mike's experience and actually making dreams in the industries of media become true. So we're actually going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. So I will just call on you and ask you to make yourself visible to our audience, and please share your name, your year of graduation at St. Mike's, and the program that you were in, and also please share your occupation with us. And I'll just go in the order that I see you on my screen. I know it's a bit of a mystery if everyone has the same people. So first I have Kevin. So could you please introduce yourself for us?
Sure, thanks, Iris. My name is Kevin Sylvester. I attended St. Mike's undergrad, graduated in 1989. My degree was in English and philosophy with a minor in Latin, thanks to Richard Toporowski. And then I actually went back to St. Mike's a little bit later, kind of part-time as a scholar when I studied at Massey College. I had a fellowship at Massey College, and I went back and I studied theology at St. Mike's. So 89, and now I work as a broadcaster, but I also write and illustrate books for kids. There we go.
Thank you so much, Kevin. So now it looks like I already messed up the order here. So we'll go up top to Natalie, who's now there.
Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm Natalie Jenner, and I graduated a year after Kevin, apparently, in 1990. I was studying English literature, and if I recall correctly, I had a minor in political science as well as film studies. And I went straight from St. Mike's with a 3-year BA in those days. You could get away with 3 years. I went into the Faculty of Law at University of Toronto, and I was a lawyer and wore different hats in the legal industry for 3 decades. And then just last year at age 52, became a published debut novelist. So I'm definitely the baby, not age-wise, in the group today.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And now we'll move to Justin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Halea. I graduated from St. Mike's in 2007. And since then, I've been doing all kinds of different things, but mostly in the stream of human rights, actually. So after U of T, I moved out to Alberta, and I went to the University of Alberta for a master's in philosophy, which I also did at St. Mike's. I did a philosophy specialist while I was at U of T. And then I got a master's degree in human rights studies from Columbia University. And I'm actually back in school again at McGill for a joint law degree at BCL and JD. But I work as a musician as well, a professional musician, as a singer, conductor, and pianist. So very happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. We are so happy for all of you. And Peter, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Peter Moen. I spent 3 years in architecture school from 1974 to 77, then went to St. Mike's College to study film and drama, amongst other things. I graduated in 1980 and went from there through a circuitous path into the film industry, where I've became a writer executive producer of TV shows, and have done well over 600 hours of TV for Canada and the United States and markets all around the world.
Thank you so much for being here with us, all of you. Such a rich panel. Looking forward to hearing your responses.
No. We're writers. We are definitely not rich.
No, don't confuse our students. They will be everything, right? They will be
Exactly. Yes, it'll be all fun.
That's right.
We're going to get there. We're going to start off a little more gently with our questions. So we will jump in because we don't have a lot of time, and I really would like to get to the Q&A as well. So our first question is a two-parter. So the first is, how did your experience at St. Mike's inform you as a person and or artist when you think back to your experiences? And then as you're thinking back to your experiences at St. Mike's, is there a particular space, class, professor, even experience on campus that inspired you in your education, but also beyond, and to go down these various routes that you've all kind of, life has led you? So maybe for simplicity's sake, we will start with the order of just going from the top. So with Natalie, if we could start with you.
I could give the standard answers that I was going to give. And then in the blur that has been the past 12 months of my year since I got published at such an old age, I actually remembered that it was an alumni event at St. Mike's that was very responsible for my book. So I had great teachers on campus and great experiences as an English literature student, but I think I also was interested in law. I think I got into law school at U of T because I had a great experience at St. Mike's. So I think that is, something that's very important to me. But 3 years ago, I came back for Alumni Week, and I was attending a lecture by Professor Stephen Tardif, Christianity and Culture Prof. And it was on Pride and Prejudice and whether Jane Austen herself really wanted to be married. And a week and a half earlier, I'd started writing my first book in 10 years. And I went home so inspired by his lecture, added it to a bunch of other experiences I had, and kept going, and then wrote a book that has changed my life and is why I'm here today, exactly 3 years later now as a guest. So St. Mike's has been a continuing huge part, obviously, of inspiring me as an artist, as a writer. So how's them apples?
That's incredible. I wish my colleague Stephen was here so that we could.
Oh, you know him? Oh, please say hi. He's in my acknowledgements.
Certainly know him. He actually teaches in book and media studies as well.
Okay, cool.
Incredible. Thank you. Kevin, your story.
It's hard to narrow down how much St. Mike's has meant to me. My dad went there. My dad's best friend went there. I showed up as a 17-year-old ignorant kid from small town America. Honestly, I'm not making like I was a jerk. And so what was interesting about St. Mike's, I was such a unformed piece of clay. And St. Mike's honestly was I edited the paper, and that ended up leading to my love for journalism. I illustrated the paper. I'm wearing my Mike t-shirt that I drew in 1989. That led to me starting to think maybe I could actually be an illustrator. And look, every book that I've written at some point leads back to things that I was exposed to as a student, or literally going out and having beers with my friends to talk about books that they loved and we loved. It's, I think, where I could have gone one way, and I went to St. Mike's and I've started going another way. And it sparked my curiosity. It made me interested in all sorts of questions that I don't think I was asking when I first showed up at 17 years old. And honestly, I made a lot of mistakes. I put in my bio that I was kind of a disastrous editor of the Mike when I was there. Natalie might remember some of the garbage I got into. Yeah, and so I was bad. But I was allowed to make mistakes, and I had a community that said, "Hey, dude, let's think about this a little more critically." And honestly, I don't think I would have any of my life today if it hadn't been for St. Mike's.
My heartstrings for St. Mike's are being pulled by your responses. Thank you. Justin.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I share all these sentiments. St. Mike's means so much to me. In fact, in a lot of ways, I feel like it's where my life began, oddly enough, especially with the music making I'm doing nowadays. So I'm a conductor. I haven't conducted in a while because choirs can't get together really. However, St. Mike's was the first place I had a choir. There was, I believe it still exists, I hope it does at least, a student liturgical choir that services St. Basil's for the student-run mass, but also that choir is involved in many other St. Mike's activities. So I remember performing at Convocation, Invocation, and other St. Mike's related events. And it was an opportunity really to connect with other students, but in so many ways, the choir and the ethos of St. Michael's College was really about service. And that's something that really stuck with me, especially doing human rights work and kind of connecting the two. Music was one way of galvanizing the community and reaching out to the wider community. And I've always just taken that with me. And I still remember like slugging this big binder full of music down into the bowels of St. Basil's where we rehearsed, and just with a number of students who were really committed to the idea of using their talents to help the community, and they were so committed, and they've continued to inspire me. That whole experience has just been one that I've carried with me every time I'm in front of a choir or orchestra at the podium. So I always think back to St. Mike's during those times.
Wow. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And Peter, your story.
Yeah, I know I spent a lot of time at St. Mike's, even when I was in architecture, because all of my friends had gone to St. Mike's and my wife was in St. Mike's. And so a lot of time around the Coop and Brennan Hall talking art and philosophy and big ideas and drinking coffee and beer. And I was the photo editor of the Mike, Kevin. So I know that part of it very well, and would act in and direct plays at Brennan Hall as well. And so it was really a center of a lot of creative thought and energy, and a lot of interesting people there to develop with together. We were talking about teachers, and I had Father Arthur Gibson, who was fantastic. He was probably the only film class that was taught out of St. Mike's at that point. And he was quite a character. He had scars on his head from when he swore that the Jesuits had pushed him down the stairs to try to kill him because he refused to join and help them take over the world. And he spoke about 20 languages and swore that he had been working during the Cuban Missile Crisis on the computers in Washington, and that they had spoken to him and told him how to defuse the situation. Full of crazy things, but he actually set up a situation whereby I could do a film script for my final project. And that was the first script I wrote, and he was very supportive, and that gave me the gumption to do more of that and to actually make a career out of it. So that was a real nice thing. I think it's always the teachers and their inspiration that make a place and help the students along.
Thank you so much. You've all spoken so strongly to the community at St. Mike's. It's so lovely to hear that in your histories and experiences. Our next question for you, you've touched on a little bit, but maybe you could go even more directly into, why did you choose a career in media, the arts, or entertainment? Like, especially maybe what was it in the passions in there too that drove you to that? And also, why do you stay and why have you stayed? And wherever you are at this point in your career. Yeah, Natalie, we could begin with you.
I wanted to be a writer from the time I was 3, and then a lawyer from the time I was 11. So I was a career coach for over 20 years, and my dad coached me, and he said, go to absolute best place you can go to, because that will maximize opportunity. So I was very thrilled when I got into St. Mike's. And when I was studying English literature here, I realized there's a disconnect, I think, as a reader between the greatness on the page and your sense of your own confidence in your talent. So for me, I wanted to be a writer, but I took the safer path of pursuing law. And I think as a former career coach, what I would share with the students, in particular in the audience, is that every single experience in my life, academically and professionally, has led to me being a published writer now in some way. And that all experience is valuable. My experience as a lawyer is sometimes even more valuable to me than the English literature degree that I got. I would not have foreseen that. The ability to connect in a community and learn the value of building relationships and allies and having mentors is so critical for your career. And in a smaller college environment like St. Mike's, it's an incredible opportunity to get to know people who are at different stages of their careers and at the top of their game. So for me, it was a very easy decision to try and get into writing because I'd always loved it. My skill sets have served me well now, and I stay not because I can't not write. I can easily not write, but I'm literally never happier than when I write. I feel very lucky to feel that way. And I would encourage anybody regarding the arts, if you are never happier than when you draw, sing, paint, sculpt, write, kick a soccer ball, whatever it is, you will keep doing it. And the other parts of life tend to fall into place if there's hard work and luck, which comes from connecting and opportunity.
So helpful,
Yeah.
especially for our students. Thank you so much. Kevin, yours?
I'm gonna say that one of the things that I sort of a lesson that stuck with me throughout my time at St. Mike's was that failure was fine. I took 5 years to do a 4-year degree. My grades sucked. I failed at a lot of things, but what was amazing about them was that I realized about halfway through my time at St. Mike's that I was never going to be an academic, but that what was being offered to me were amazing experiences. So like I would go talk opera to Father Owen Lee, or I would talk Latin with Richard Toporowski, or we'd sit in the Canada room and debate Catholicism. And we'd literally get together, and Evelyn Waugh, I could never get into the Waugh and Green class. It was always full. I know, but then I would go read all the Evelyn Waugh and then sit with my buddies, the Muggeridges, and talk about it at like the Duke of York pub. So sort of like what Natalie said, every experience that I had at St. Mike's filters into what I do today as a writer. And also knowing that I'm not going to be I might be a best-selling writer, but that's not the point. That the point is that you're just, if like Natalie said, if you enjoy it, do it. Don't worry about having to be successful at it, but also realize that every single thing that you encounter at St. Mike's, whether it feels like it's something you want or don't, pay attention to it because it will come back in ways you didn't expect. So, you know, I failed Shakespeare twice with Gino Matteo. The poor man gave me 2 tries to do it, and I just wouldn't read the plays. I wrote a book about Shakespeare, which is dedicated to St. Michael's College. And that is because there it is, St. Michael's College, because I at least paid attention to what he was telling me, even though I bombed out as a student. So don't worry so much about all the big stuff. Pay attention to the fun stuff, and then you'll find out that they tend to meet up.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
Thank you so much. I'm wanting all of my students to see that book and the failure turned into creative transformation and such. Justin.
Yeah, I resonate so much with what Kevin just said, because I'm now remembering the invocation speech that Mark McGowan gave in my year. And it's so articulate, but I remember one specific word or phrase, but I remember the word, and he said, you know, go out there and dabble. And that word has really stuck with me through my career. I've tried new and interesting things when I was at St. Mike's. I really tried to get my hands into everything I could. I was on SMICSU, I helped with theater, I even edited stuff for the mic. And I just wanted to absorb all those experiences, not least because of the way that Mark really enticed us to do that. And now exploring this connection between music and human rights, I feel like I'm constantly learning and dabbling in new things, new creative outlets to advance human rights and vice versa. And so to go back to your question though, I'm not sure I chose it, but I kind of fell into it in a beautiful way. I think it wasn't something that I thought at one point, okay, I'll connect these two, but I was doing music and working on human rights issues side by side, and suddenly they all started to click. And I think back to my time in St. Mike's and all of the connections we had there. You know, it was the first time I thought of doing benefit concerts or concerts for a cause was with that student group I mentioned earlier. And I think that that's something that continues to drive me, that idea of dabbling in things. So I again resonate quite strongly with Natalie and Kevin, and I think that it's important to continue to do that regardless of what stage of your career you're in. You'll never know until you put your foot in the water and see what happens. So I stay in it because that thrills me, the idea of something new and exciting that connects to my past and new ways of approaching different ideas. But I really attribute it to that, maybe that moment that Mark said that, and through my academic career at St. Mike's.
Wonderful. Thank you. Peter.
Cool. Well, I have to say the thing that inspired me most to get into my job is being obsessed by the Dick Van Dyke Show when I was a little kid, and knowing I had to be in a writing room. So that's what took me most of the way. But seriously, I totally agree with the other folks, because being at St. Mike's, you were allowed to dabble, but if you have a lot of interests, you can spread out into many things. Like I said, the theater and the mic, and I was captain of the fencing team at U of T, and you could just do all kinds of different things at that time in your life, and just expand. And that's one of the beautiful things about what I do in the film business, because I will write episodes, of course, but also I'm exec producer on most of the shows I do, which means that my interest in photography and painting and art and sound and music and everything, I am over all of those, and will have a hand in playing in all of those areas and working with the individual artists who work in each of the departments. So it's really it's a great career for a dabbler in a way, who is looking to get their vision fulfilled, and who has good, wants to be a people person, wants to fulfill themselves in that way. I love the puzzle every day of how I'm going to tell this story and stick handle it through networks and the 18 different departments I have to deal with every day, and get it on the floor and cut it and get it to the audience, and then do it again next week. It's there's always something new, always something challenging, and that puzzle aspect of it is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All of your, the one thing I want to say is if you have a co-panelist that says something and you want to respond, please feel free to make a scene with your hand.
Butt in.
Yes, please butt in. One question that kind of comes out of all of your comments, I think, that I'd like to put out there is, you've all mentioned, kind of letting go of control, or allowing your interests and the path to emerge as you go. And, I have to say, I've had so many students first-year students sit and tell me what they love, and that they're going to do that when they retire, like 18 years old.
Yeah.
And they're going to do what they love when they retire, because they feel, and society kind of teaches us, that there's a path and this is okay. And a lot of times that love is in the arts, or it's, and so I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how do you summon up that courage, to take the step and do what you love and believe that you can make a living doing that.
Well, as a career coach, what I would always say to people is you only have to figure out three things. You have to figure out either the skill that you want to do, or the company that you want to work for, or the industry that you want to work in. And when you figure that out, then it doesn't really matter. If you figure out you want to be in the music industry, but you don't know for sure what you want to do, the job itself isn't as important as getting into an industry and having skills that serve it. If you figure out the skill you want, let's say you want to be a writer and your first work that you're doing isn't getting published right exactly the way you'd like it to, and you're working and you're banging your head against the wall. As I was, it took me 20 years to get published. But eventually that skill is being developed in the 10,000 hours of Malcolm Gladwell. It's becoming a muscle that nobody else has quite the way that you do. And that's why you're spending so many hours doing it. It becomes a unique proposition. Or sometimes I've been coaching people and they're like, I really want to work for Disney. I really want to work for Google. I really want to work for City TV. And it's like, again, like just get in the door and the rest of it will fall into place. So I think it's important to just figure out one part of this and have that be your target and not feel that you have to solve all aspects of the career. But if you completely don't practice it or do it, I always say to everyone, you're guaranteed you will not get published if you don't write. Like it's as simple as that. So that's how I approach it when you're young and you're looking at the arc and thinking, am I giving up on my dream? How can I hold on to the possibility of my dream and still make an income?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Others?
Can I
Yeah,
respond to that? Because firstly, I'm getting great career advice, Natalie. Thank you. I didn't think that would happen today, but of course, not surprised. But yeah, I was just gonna say, where do you sum up the courage? Art for me is something I can't do without. And it sounds to me like, Iris, your students feel that intrinsically, right? It's something they want to do later, but it's also part of living and breathing for them. Mm-hmm. And like personally, I just couldn't let go of it. Like none of my academic or career path really was in the arts, but I just every night was doing something artistic. And then all of a sudden, I found out, especially working on human rights issues, that why am I not using this thing that I'm highly trained in and love to accomplish goals that overlap with the human rights world, changing hearts and minds of people. I can't think of a better thing than the arts to do that in so many ways. And, I just didn't let go of it. I just wanted art so much in my life that even though I was pursuing what I thought was completely separate from those interests, I continued to do it. So maybe it was the courage not to step all the way into it, but it was the courage to just have it in my life in some capacity.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And wait for the opportune moment.
Don't go cold turkey.
Yes.
Don't completely give it up. Find a way. Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And there were so many things in my life telling me, oh, I should do this or that. You got to commit to the one thing. Otherwise, you're going to be spread too thin. And no, I'm still resisting that, actually. I'm still trusting that it's going to be okay. So thanks for that, Natalie. I need to do that. But I maybe that's my advice. You got to trust that something that you love will bear some fruit.
Yeah, and I'll add too that and I think this is already sort of, people can glean this from all of our stories. No one has the same story. Yeah. So there's no one path to whatever it is you love. So I didn't get my first book published till I was in my 30s for kids, and I'd worked a completely different career ahead of that. But the skills I learned as a broadcaster helped me immensely to be able to be a storyteller for kids. So you don't know that. So don't go, well, I'm going to do this and then do this when I retire. Why are you limiting yourself that way? First of all, keep doing the thing you love. It will make you better at the thing you think is what you have to do. And you may discover that, just as they both said, everybody said, is like, you may find that they intersect in ways you could never have imagined, and they make you better. But I'd also say to that person that if they want to be, let's say I'm going to be a doctor, but then I'm going to paint when I'm 65. I'd say, well, paint now. Even if that doesn't become your thing, it'll make you a better doctor. Yeah. So
that's right. Yeah, I mean, I jumped in. I had one person who believed in me, but that was my wife, and she was the woman behind the man and in front of the man and on both sides of the man, and she brought me through all of it. And I just worked. I had my vision, and I scratched around a lot of different things to give me the silly jobs that would give me the time to write and to move closer to the entertainment business. And it took me 2 or 3 years to sell my first script, but once the door was open, it became a clearer path from there. But really, I think keep that vision strong, do whatever you have to do to get to it. And yeah, don't lose faith, and keep people around you, as I say, who believe in you too, and will not drag you down or make you double think your goals.
I actually think who you marry in life is possibly the most important decision you'll make, and who you share your time with in the family atmosphere, and whether it's a marriage or not. But that support, I would not be a published author without my husband's support. He is my first and sometimes my only reader, because this, I think, was my 6th or 7th novel that finally got published. And I think it's just very important, and Peter is so right, is that the best person for you will know that you can do this, and that you need to have the space and the room to try. And I think we're all very lucky if we have someone in our life that stays the course with us, because these careers are sometimes long-winded to get to. And I think that, yeah, if somebody in your life is able to help you generate optimism and courage from their presence, that's love, and that's a huge part of life.
And in my case, it also helps that my wife went to St. Mike's too and graduated in 1990.
There you go.
St. Mike's, double.
Everything.
Same with my wife. We were high school sweethearts, and she went to St. Mike's, and that's the main reason that I enrolled there after architecture school. So,
and my kids at Vic.
40 years married yesterday.
You're married how long?
44 years.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you for that. I think your advice as well is so helpful for students, but also just for everyone watching, because I mean, we all want our fulfilling dreams and lives, right? So you're speaking to integrating so much. So I went off script. I'll go back on script. So one of our next questions is, do you have a favorite moment from your career? Is there one that stands out right when I ask that question?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was my publication day. I was very lucky. My book was being published literally around the world, and it showed up in bookstores, on social media the night before it published in North America. And I remember just going through, and then seeing my book in a bookstore. I have yet to actually physically see it in a bookstore, but my publication date of my first debut novel, which happened exactly a year and 3 days ago. So then this past week, we experienced the great joy of a publication date. And Kevin's way ahead of me on this because he had so many books published, but it becomes like another birthday in your life. It's another special day, and it will be there every year. And how lucky am I to get another birthday at this age? So I would say for sure, having your book published, I don't care where, when, how, having it come into the world, literally be born and exist as a thing that people can go by is, for me, is the greatest moment.
Doesn't grow old, I'll say that. Like,
Yeah.
I would, yeah, I mean, that certainly every time a book comes out, it's amazing. I would say maybe just because it's my kids at St. Mike's now, maybe the fact that we wrote a book together and that came out, sort of sharing that. Yeah, Basil is at St. Mike's right now. At Books and Media Studies. I know, not at Vic. I love Vic. I took Vic. It was great.
The other one is Brennan.
There we go. Yeah. So it was, it's yeah, I would say, yeah, that's amazing. And when you see something that you did have a life away from you too, because then it's a shared thing. That's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I think I had a lot of those, first time something was made, first time you saw it on TV, first time you saw it in another country. I did a lot of shows in other countries, and to see it on French TV or Italian TV dubbed, there were lots of those firsts that were exciting moments. But really, it's just the joy of doing the job and keeping getting to do it over and over that has been the good experience.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. It's a good question. I'm thinking of one specific time, mostly because I'm a performing artist. I do record, obviously, but it was in Connecticut. So I started this choir in New York that tries to community build, and we work with partners as a matter of mission. So each of our concerts are curated based on the stories of these organizations. And the first organization we chose was Sandy Hook Promise. And it was an amazing experience, but we ended up having repeat concerts with that same organization. And I remember the time that we performed at Yale University, and the founder, one of the founders, was there. And I never thought that I would meet someone from the Sandy Hook Massacre, let alone a parent. And he was, until the day his son Daniel was shot, he was a performing artist. He was a guitarist on Broadway. And I remember after the concert, he came and he gave me this big hug, and he said, you know, I think I need to get back into it, because it was just too close to home. Daniel was also a drummer, and they gigged together. Even at such a young age, he was quite precocious. And I think at that moment, I realized how powerful music is. And even though you put it aside for traumatic reasons or what have you, it's something in your life that you need. And he also, I think, realized when he told me that it could do a lot of good to spread the idea that you know, gun violence shouldn't happen, and music is a way of conveying that. So to me, that's something that I won't ever forget, because I think in that moment I saw the power of the arts in action, basically. So, yeah.
Thank you. So powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the flip side of that question is, how about most challenging moments in your career? What comes up? And also, I mean, what was the challenge and how did you endure and push through?
I've had 3 publishers go bankrupt on me without paying me money. And that is the reality of anything in the arts, is that the funding is always contingent. It's never guaranteed. And I guess what I learned from that is that I really did want to keep publishing. So I kept pushing and pushing and pushing different book ideas at different publishers, and luckily had an agent who as well was able to sort of say, hey, let's grab this book from this publisher that just went bankrupt and put it someplace else. But at least every time that happened, it felt like the end of my career. Like it was like, that's the end. I can't, how do you get back from this? And so I think it was a test of my resolve to actually say that, no, I'm going to do this. And I found a way to do this, and it was hard. And my wife, Laura, was super supportive, and my family was supportive. But that's going to happen to you. There's going to be times when something horrible is going to happen. It doesn't really matter what your career is, but in the arts, it can feel kind of more personal sometimes. And so, yeah, that was the low point for sure.
I think for me, the personal is very important to talk about. For 10 years, I was sending out different manuscripts, getting very close with agents around the world. And when it just kept falling apart with, you know, a small publisher or an agent would read it and do an R&R, and I'd be waiting, and then it would take a year, and then they get back and like, no, or they never get back to you. It was a wall of silence, and it was really hard not to take it personally. So I took a break from writing for about 10 years, and I wanted books to be a bigger part of my life. So I opened a little bookshop. So I opened this little independent bookshop in downtown Oakville. I love being around books. And the first thing I realized was how unpersonal everything that had happened to me was, because I realized that thousands of books were being released a week. And I would get the top fiction release of the week from Random House and the top fiction release of the week from HarperCollins. And there's gazillions of them showing up, more than one from the same publishing house. And I'm getting the arcs. And it's like, how does anybody break anything out from the other? And no wonder this industry is so high concept. And so no wonder you need to have like a hook or something distinctive about your product. And that will take you time to figure out where you kind of, I think, bring uniqueness to your skill set and your unique voice. But I remember not taking it personal was what I think enabled me 3 years ago to give it one more shot. And I remember when I told my family, and we'd come out of a difficult year medically for my husband, and I was like, I think I'm going to write again. And my husband's like, God, babe, please don't. Like, just, he was like, you were so heartbroken those 10 years. And he goes, I just don't want to see you go through it again. I went, no. I'm going to write this time for 3 reasons. The first, it has to, I have to love it, which I did, and I knew I would. So you have to love it, which is why my book is dedicated for my husband. And then third, it has to have just more than a snowball's chance in hell of being of interest to one other person outside this house. And that was the Jane Austen hook. And my book has got the word Jane Austen in it. And that is the high concept. And that's how I got pulled out of a slush pile. So I think that for me, not taking it personally, the rejection is, I think, was the hardest part. It was hard to believe that you could still be a good writer and be worth getting published one day, and yet have so much, I'm talking hundreds of agents around the world rejecting you for years of your life. It's very hard to sustain confidence in your talent. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I feel like I'm coaching. Stop.
We want it. We're taking it.
Keep going.
Other challenges, Peter?
Yeah, you know, I think in my business, it's an ego it's a business is famous for people with big egos. And I mean, I believe that the first ego you've got to get under control is your own. And very much, as Natalie was saying, not make it personal. And, you know, there were times, a lot of the shows that I would do were Canadian-based shows where we can't fund it all in Canada. So it would have 2 or 3 countries, other countries involved, with 2 or 3 other networks, 2 or 3 other production companies, lots of notes, lots of egos. And you have to learn when they're all fighting with each other, but doing it by using the scripts and the show as a football, and you're at the center of it and have to deliver something that will work. And you know, I'd have times of crushing pressure with where I'd taste stress chemicals in my mouth and be working 3 days without sleep and so on and so forth. But I think that you know, what I learned is how to subjugate the ego, how to remind everybody, how to be political, how to keep the powder dry, not blow up at anybody, but how to remind them of why we all got into it in the first place, and to inspire everybody to get behind a common idea. And, you know, once again, if you have your little idea that you want to make a show about, and something you feel very passionate about, when people start sniping away at it from all sides, you can very quickly lose your way. And you have to realize that you're standing on shifting sand, but know what's essential in the story you want to tell, and shepherd that through to the end, and try to make a show that you're really proud of. And you know, it's like I say, those challenging times were the times of greatest growth, of things with multiple points of view and ego wars.
I mean, that's brilliant. I'll just add one quick thing, because the art form that I spend the most time in is with choral music, and a choir or orchestra, they really do have to work together. You can't just have one dude doing something different. That's really not going to work. And so, but the challenge then is trying to unite them as a conductor too, gesturally, non-verbally often. Like, this is very difficult to pull off and be consistent, both in practice and outside of practice and during a concert. And I mean, that it is a constant challenge, but I totally agree with what Peter just said. It's also an opportunity for growth. And, you know, taking the time to reflect on those things, and even checking egos at the door is something that is built into a lot of the cultural mores of the groups that I've been involved in, because art really doesn't happen if you don't kind of get out of the way of it. And, you know, I think I've been somewhat blessed to work with a medium that requires me to do that, but I'm constantly learning that is true. So yeah, it's great to hear that.
Thank you all. I think that's all really useful. I really like Peter's metaphor of the shifting sands too, and learning, developing the core muscles to help us there, right? Which is working with others. And also, you've spoken nicely to the way that even though we have such a personal stake in our art, that also allowing those other views to come in can also let it grow as well, right? Like Justin was just saying, getting out of the way. But emotionally, that can be challenging.
I must say at the center of a lot of what I do is the writing room and the writing room process. And I've always subscribed to the best idea wins notion, where you know, if I demand that it be exactly what I want, it'll only be as good as I can make it. Whereby if everybody is bringing their best work and their best thoughts and we're cooking together, I often think of myself, Justin, as a conductor, that you're turning 8 brains in a room into one big brain, and I've got an idea, and I'm like, yeah, more like that, no, not that, but and
exactly right.
And so what you're doing is you're bringing the best out of everybody and creating something bigger than all of us. And that's fantastic. I learned many of those skills actually doing theater sports back in the day, where you'd learn, you know, if you come out on stage and somebody says, "Oh my God, the sky's falling," and the other person says, "No, it's not," you know, your scene is over. But if you come out on stage and say, "Oh my God, the sky's falling," and the other person says, "You're right, I've got a stick. Help me hold it up." You know, suddenly now you've got a scene which is getting bigger and smarter and funnier and more interesting. And I think that kind of collaborative energy is something that people have to get past their ego to really embrace, and to work with others and listen to others and bring others along.
Yeah, even in writing, like, you think that an author writes a book, but you don't. It's a collaborative effort from your editor to your spouse, in our cases, to second readers, third readers, and then the reader also closes a circle that you've merely opened. So yeah, jettison the idea very early on that you are doing something on your own. No one can do anything on their own.
Thank you. So we only have about just under 15 minutes left. So I'm going to turn to some of the questions that have come up from our audience here. So one that we have is something that we kind of talked about a little earlier. How can someone get their foot in the door without existing connections to offer their skill to the company or industry or art industry of their choice? The arts industry don't generally reach out to campus to hold job fairs. And in my experience, there seems to be a lot of who you know involved in moving through. Can anyone speak to that?
I can only speak about my industry. If people want to get involved, I would say it's different for everything. But if you want to become a writer, director, producer, a great way to do it is to look at the Canadian Film Centre or the National Screen Institute, who have programs that give you not only an approximation of what it's like to really be in a writing room or to be directing a real television show or a movie or whatever, but you are also introduced to all of the networks, agents, and casting people, and all of the people who will make decisions and who you will need to progress. And that access, it becomes a little bit of that who you know. So that's a very good way to do it. But also, I would say that if you don't do that or can't do that, back in the day when I got into it, it was very difficult to make a movie. You would have to have a 16mm camera, and you have to pay for film, and you have to get a lighting package, and you have to get sound equipment, and you have to get a crew to move all that heavy stuff. And now everybody's got a movie studio in their pocket. It's you know, you got a 4K camera and shows, and you know, you can make a proof of concept video that you can put on YouTube, get 100,000 hits, and bring that into a network or a producer. And they take that kind of thing very seriously. There's shows like High Maintenance that was made for Vimeo on a shoestring budget, and he sold it to HBO. The comedy Broad City was made for YouTube. Amy Poehler saw it, she took it into Comedy Central, and that became a network show. You know, I think today, people on a shoestring can do things that will let them jump the line of having to know people by just actually doing it themselves and getting that practice and honing their craft and their skills and moving along that way.
I'd also say that that getting to know people is something that is also part of your career path. So when I knew I wanted to illustrate books, I knew zero people in Canadian publishing, but I knew that there were, or found out that there were, you know, in my world, the Canadian children's book world, there was the Canadian Children's Book Center. There was CanScape, which is an organization that allows non-published people to come in, go to meetings. And then suddenly you're sitting at a meeting next to somebody who turns out to be the editor at a major publishing house. Now, again, I'm not denying that there's privilege at play in a lot of these industries. I'm no way am I denying that. But I also think, like, find the community of people that are doing the thing you're interested in doing. That's you start by creating your own circle of friends. Maybe it's your family at the beginning, and then it bridges out, and then you start to end up finding out that you do know people and that you can make connections and go to events and send out. Natalie said she sent out her stuff for 10 years. Well, you don't know what connections might have been made during that 10 years with an agent who you said never, you know, thought of you, but then goes, wait a minute, how about, and now sees your name again and thinks of you for another project. Things happen in ways you don't necessarily expect. Sometimes you have to be patient. Sometimes it won't work. And yes, sometimes there are structural things that might keep you out. But also, why are you waiting for the arts community to show up at campus for a career fair? Do you want to be an artist? Go out to the artists. Like, you got to be proactive in this business.
Sorry, no, Peter, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, if people are interested once again in screenwriting, there's a great Facebook group called Inc. Canada, and it's advertised as being for screenwriters and their sketchy friends. And it's actually done by a great writer and great friend of mine, Karen Walton. And there are probably a few thousand people involved. But what she started was a way, of course, to get screenwriters interested in anything is have alcohol involved. So she started a drinking evening once a month. And so the people who would show up would be showrunners, network executives, and rank amateur writers, and people of agents, people of all kinds of descriptions. And these became very, very popular, and is a very popular place to go on Facebook to get information about breaking in, about craft, about who's doing what. It's just a fantastic resource for anybody who's interested. It's called Inc. Canada.
That's good. I was going to put my coach hat on one last time, and say that someone once said that serendipity increases in relation to sociability, and your job is to go out and get to know a lot of human beings on this planet. It will make life much more fun for you. But secondly, like Kevin said, you don't know who you know. And the success of your network is based on its diversity, and it's on knowing lots of different people. And if I don't know anyone in the film and entertainment industry, not really, but if you told me I had to find someone by tomorrow, I could, because I know an entertainment lawyer, and they probably have a client that's a production company, and maybe he or she that owns the production company is a little behind on something that I know something about, like managing social media. And you know, young people have a lot of skills to offer the older guard in different industries in terms of their understanding of technology and social media and the new ways of advertising. And there's skills that you have that you may not even know you have, that older people, trust me, don't want to have to learn. I have an editor and an agent who are both over 65, I think, or like, I hope they're at least in their 60s. And they're always like, oh my God, like I have no idea how to do X. And if someone can get you a coffee with somebody and you can offer them X, they're gonna feel kindly disposed towards you, and they're gonna wanna help you. And I really feel that that's just a fun way to live life as well.
I completely agree with that. And just to bring it back to St. Mike's, I owned a lot of those skills at St. Mike's. I was always talking to people on campus, people I didn't know, just approached people, you know, that I thought was interesting. And I mean, that's a perfect opportunity for you to, I think, just exercise those skills and to refine them. Especially in such a warm and welcoming place like St. Mike's. I feel like it's safe for you to test out those burgeoning skills. But you know, I also believe in creating things, and luckily my cohort at St. Mike's when I was there were some of the same kinds of people. They really loved making things, even making opportunities that didn't exist in the past. So I would just encourage that and look to your immediate circle and have that grow subtly.
Thank you for that. So I think we have time for this last question, which is coming from another student and relates us back to this reality we're living in, this pandemic reality. So as a student, I feel pressure to be successful and I can attest to this. I think 99% of my students live with the stress and anxiety of being successful right away when they leave university. And yet the pandemic has slowed everything down. And we've learned that it's okay, things will happen in the right time. We're going in exceptional times. Yet now as life is starting to go back to normal, I feel a pressure to be more successful, and it's even more pressure than there was before. So do you have any advice for students as we're heading back into normal, if such a thing will exist? And I think that's even up. Yeah.
What's your definition of success?
Yeah.
Like what is it that you're defining as success? Like I'm by no means successful in some terms, but I'm successful because I'm doing what I love.
Yeah.
But am I making a living at it? Sort of. Like I make enough that I get by. But like the idea is like, what is your, what is the success that's driving you? Are you talking about the success to be a great artist or something? Well, then go make art. Like go mess up all the time. Success means failing a lot of the time. I'm a giant baseball fan, and they use that metaphor all the time, that the best hitter in baseball is out half the time, at least, right? They don't get on base. They don't get a hit. So first of all, reimagine what your idea of success is, because you probably using some external metric to shine a light on you that's not proper. Jettison that and worry about what is it that makes you happy and what are you able to become great at to satisfy your own terms of what success should be.
I have to add to that because I graduated in 2 recessions. So in 1990 from undergrad and then in 93 from law school. And I was protected in 93 by having an articling position and got hired back from there. A lot of my friends had stayed at St. Mike's to do their 4th year and wanted to become teachers, wanted to have a certain role in environmental, climate was increasing. They wanted to get into that in the government. And I watched everybody for a few years kind of struggle. I mean, interest rates, I can't convey to you guys, like, what were interest rates? They were like 18%. It was insane, 18%. Think about that. It was really difficult. And a lot of my friends wanted to be teachers. They were substitute teaching for years. It was really hard, but it's a chapter in your life of a few years. And A for effort. People just want to know, what did you do during that time? So I always say to people, if it's not working out right away and you don't look employed or you don't have the exact job you want, or you don't have a job, you just have to be doing things that you're growing and learning from. And people will know that this was one of the worst times in the history of the human race. This has been a horrific situation. I just said to my daughter, we're talking wars, Spanish flu, and this in terms of global impact. And the adults in the world are going to want to help you, because they are going to know, because they lived through this too. And so I don't want you to think that it's going to end right away and everyone's going to be partying and succeeding. And it's going to be a while, but people will give you room to grow and develop if you show the effort and you show that you want it. It's very important. Also,
I've got to say, I found that graduating, we were poor as church mice, and I'd shoot weddings on the weekend as a wedding photographer. I'd work at Sears in the evenings. I'd do everything I had to do to give me the time to write and to try to prevail in this business. And I think a lot of doing some of those jobs that were very frustrating or difficult gave me the drive that I've got to get past this. I can't, I got no safety net. I got to get past this. I've got to win. I've got to sell these things I'm writing and break into the business. So I think too, if you do have that pressure right over your shoulder all the time, that's something that can help you to be motivated to create what you have to create to sell yourself, to write those first novels or write those first screenplays or books or whatever. So it worked for me.
Yeah, I agree with what's just been said, and I'm a student again, so I'm feeling the same kind of pressure you are. Is it Camilla? I see in the question and answer, and I understand that. I'm also working though at the same time. I'm trying to, incorporate law into the work that I do currently, but there is pressure, and I'm personally worried about what will happen afterwards. But I completely agree with Natalie, and from my own personal experience, I guess it's a little bit unique because I've had some experience in the world working, and that you have to continue doing what you're doing. You have to find ways to continue to refine your skills, and I trust, I think, that if you do that, things will come. But I understand that feeling of pressure, but to go back to what Kevin said, redefining what success means to you, I think, is also important. And I think the pandemic has offered us an opportunity to do that. And I'm, trying to take that chance and redefine what it means to be successful. So I encourage you to do the same.
Mhm.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I'm going to hand it over to Maxine. I know she wants to have some closing words, but I just, on behalf of St. Mike's and the Book and Media Studies program, I just want to thank our panelists so much. You've shared. I'm going to have to challenge you, Kevin. You are all rich. There's so much richness that has come through in all of your comments, and especially the way that the arts, like as Justin, you said, it's like breathing, right? And I think both for those of us that make art, but we're always consuming art, especially during a pandemic. And so thank you for all of the work that you are all doing as well.
Thank you for
having us.
Great
Yeah,
question.
thank you so much, Iris.
Yeah, thank you so much to our alumni panelists. So it was super helpful and inspiring, even for someone like me who doesn't work in the arts. And I loved how you also talked about your memories of St. Mike's. So yeah, thank you, Natalie, Justin, Kevin, and Peter. And thank you to our moderator, Iris. And thank you to our participants. Thanks for giving an hour of your Saturday to spend with us. And one more thing before we go, the alumni panelists their websites or emails will be on the closing slide. So thank you.
Cool. Choikity choik.
Choik on see, that's right.
There you go.
Excellent.